You're not ready to lead. Daniel Hargrove leaned back in his leather chair, fingers laced behind his head, that smirk spreading across his face like he'd just delivered wisdom instead of an insult. I stood in his office, the office that used to be mine before the merger, before the restructuring, before every promise made to me was broken one by one, like bones snapping under pressure. 14 years. I'd given this company 14 years, built the manufacturing systems from nothing, designed the production architecture that turned a struggling regional operation into a $2.3 billion industrial powerhouse. Every major client we had came because of processes I engineered. Every efficiency metric the board celebrated traced back to systems I created. And this man who'd been CEO for 11 months, who came from a private equity firm where he'd never touched a factory floor, who couldn't tell the difference between a servo motor and a hydraulic press, this man was telling me I wasn't ready to lead. I looked at Daniel, looked at the smirk, looked at the office that still had my engineering blueprints on the wall because he thought they were decorative art. Then I did something he never expected. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't list my accomplishments or beg for reconsideration. I reached into my bag, pulled out a single envelope, and slid it across his mahogany desk. What's this? My resignation, effective in 2 weeks. The smirk wavered, just slightly. I stood up, straightened my jacket. If I'm not ready to lead, Daniel, then this company isn't ready to lose me. His jaw tightened. You think you're irreplaceable? Nobody's irreplaceable. I smiled, the kind of smile you give someone who's about to learn a very expensive lesson. 2 weeks, that's all you have to prove that theory. I walked out, didn't look back. 14 days later, production line 7 crashed, then line 4, then line 12. The Cascade Failure took out $340 million in active manufacturing contracts in 72 hours. And Meridian Dynamics' biggest client, a $780 million defense contractor, made one demand: get me Rachel Torres or we walk. Before I tell you how a single resignation letter brought a $2.3 billion company to its knees, if you appreciate stories about engineers who refused to be underestimated and executives who learned that competence isn't optional, hit that subscribe button and tap the like button right now. You need to hear what happened next. My name is Rachel Torres. I was 46 years old when Daniel Hargrove decided I wasn't ready to lead a company I'd already been leading for over a decade. 14 years before that moment, I was a 32-year-old mechanical engineer with a master's from Georgia Tech, 3 patents in advanced manufacturing systems, and a reputation for solving problems that nobody else could solve. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My father was a machinist at a small parts factory. My mother cleaned offices at night so I could attend engineering camp during summers. Every weekend, I sat on an overturned bucket in my father's workshop, watching him calibrate machines with a precision that no computer could match. Mija, he told me once, machines don't lie. People lie. Machines tell you exactly what's wrong if you know how to listen. I learned to listen. By 25, I was designing automated manufacturing systems for a defense subcontractor. By 28, I'd filed my first patent, a novel approach to predictive maintenance using vibration analysis and thermal imaging. The system could identify mechanical failures 72 hours before they occurred. My supervisors called it revolutionary. The industry called it impossible. I called it Tuesday. By 30, I was restless. The subcontractor was too small, too bureaucratic, too willing to let innovation die in committee meetings. I wanted to build something bigger. That's when I found Meridian Manufacturing, a regional industrial company based in Houston, Texas. 340 employees, $47 million in annual revenue, decent reputation, mediocre technology, enormous potential. The CEO was a man named Gerald Pratt, old school, former Army Corps of Engineers, built Meridian from a single machine shop into a legitimate manufacturing operation through sheer willpower and military discipline. Gerald hired me as Director of Manufacturing Engineering. My job was to modernize his production lines. What I actually did was rebuild the entire company from the ground up. The first thing I did at Meridian was spend 3 months on the factory floor, not in meetings, not reviewing spreadsheets, on the floor, watching every machine, listening to every motor, mapping every process from raw material intake to finished product shipment. What I found was chaos disguised as tradition. Production lines designed in the 1990s, maintenance schedules based on guesswork, quality control that relied on visual inspection by exhausted workers pulling 12-hour shifts, inventory management done on paper spreadsheets that hadn't been updated in months. "Gerald," I said after my assessment, "your factory works despite itself. You're losing $12 million a year in preventable downtime alone. Your defect rate is 340% above industry standard. Your energy consumption per unit is almost double what it should be." Gerald stared at me. "And your solution?" "Let me redesign everything." He could have said no. Most CEOs would have. Redesigning an entire manufacturing operation while maintaining production was like rebuilding an airplane engine mid-flight. Gerald said yes. It took me 26 months. I worked 20-hour days, slept on a cot in my office, designed and implemented what I called the Torres Integrated Manufacturing System, TIMS. TIMS was revolutionary, a unified architecture that connected every machine, every sensor, every process in the factory into a single intelligent network, predictive maintenance that caught failures before they happened, automated quality control using computer vision and machine learning, dynamic production scheduling that optimized output in real time based on demand, material availability, and machine health. I wrote the core software myself, 2.3 million lines of proprietary code, every algorithm, every protocol, every integration point. The system was my brain translated into silicon and steel. The results were immediate. Year 1 after TIM's implementation, downtime reduced 73%, defect rate dropped 89%, energy consumption per unit cut in half, production capacity increased 156% without adding a single new machine. Revenue jumped from $47 million to $112 million. Gerald called me into his office, gave me a promotion, Vice President of Engineering and Operations, a 40% raise, and something more valuable than money. "Rachel, you've earned something I don't give easily. My trust. This company runs on your systems now. I need you to know that I know that." "Thank you, Gerald." He leaned forward. "One more thing. I'm making you my succession plan. When I retire, this company is yours to lead. You've earned it." I believed him. That was my first mistake. And the next decade was extraordinary. Year 3, revenue $234 million. Major contract with Lockheed Martin for precision aerospace components. My TIMS system was the reason they chose us over 6 competitors. Year 5, revenue $489 million. Expansion to 3 additional manufacturing facilities, each one built on the Torres architecture. I personally oversaw every installation. Year 7, revenue $890 million. Department of Defense contract worth $340 million over 4 years. Our predictive maintenance system had 0 catastrophic failures. 0. In an industry where 3% annual failure rate was considered excellent. Year 9, revenue crossed $1 billion. Gerald told me again, 2 more years, Rachel, then the chair is yours. Year 11, revenue $1.4 billion. Gerald was 71. His health was declining, heart problems. The board began succession discussions. And then, everything changed. A private equity firm called Vandermeer Capital acquired a 34% stake in Meridian Manufacturing, enough to influence the board, enough to demand changes. Their representative was Daniel Hargrove, 39 years old, MBA from Wharton, 15 years in private equity, 0 years in manufacturing, 0 understanding of production systems, 0 respect for the people who built them. Daniel's mandate from Vandermeer was simple: cut costs, maximize margins, prepare the company for a leveraged buyout within 36 months, squeeze every dollar of value from the operation, regardless of long-term consequences. Gerald fought it, told the board that Daniel's approach would destroy the company's technical foundation. The board overruled him. Vandermeer's money spoke louder than Gerald's wisdom. Gerald retired 6 months later, not voluntarily, pushed out by a board that preferred private equity profits over engineering excellence. His last day, Gerald came to my office. "Rachel, I'm sorry. I promised you this company. I couldn't deliver." "It's not your fault, Gerald." "It is. I should have structured the ownership differently, protected you better." His eyes were wet. "Watch out for Hargrove. He doesn't understand what you've built, and people who don't understand things tend to destroy them. I'll be fine." I was wrong. Daniel Hargrove became CEO on a Monday. By Friday, he'd already started dismantling everything I'd built. First came the budget cuts. My engineering R&D budget slashed by 60%. The predictive maintenance team I'd spent years training reduced from 28 engineers to 9. Critical software updates for the TIM system delayed indefinitely. I protested, went to Daniel with data showing exactly what would happen if maintenance protocols were degraded. "Daniel, these systems require continuous monitoring and updates. The algorithms need recalibration every quarter. If we cut the maintenance team, we lose predictive capability within 6 months." He barely looked up from his phone. "Rachel, I appreciate your dedication, but we need to optimize our cost structure. The maintenance budget is 340% above industry benchmarks." Because our maintenance results are 340% above industry benchmarks. That's not a coincidence. "We'll revisit after Q2 earnings. That's final." It wasn't just the budget cuts. Daniel brought in his own people, a new VP of operations, a new director of manufacturing, people from private equity backgrounds who understood spreadsheets but couldn't identify a CNC machine if they were standing next to one. My authority was eroded systematically. Decisions that used to require my approval were rerouted to Daniel's team. Engineers who reported to me were reassigned. Meeting invitations stopped arriving. My access to certain systems was quietly restricted. For 8 months, I watched the company I'd built being hollowed out from the inside. Maintenance intervals stretched from preventative to reactive. Quality control protocols simplified to save time. Production schedules pushed beyond safe operating parameters to hit quarterly targets. I documented everything. Every warning I issued, every data report showing degradation, every email where I predicted specific failures that would occur if current trends continued. I kept copies of everything on my personal drives. Not because I was planning revenge, because I was an engineer, and engineers document. Month 11 under Daniel's leadership. The confrontation that changed everything. Daniel called a leadership meeting to announce his reorganization plan. The company would be restructured into 3 divisions: manufacturing, sales, and operations. Each division would have a new leader. None of those leaders was me. My new title: Senior Technical Consultant. No direct reports, no budget authority, no operational responsibility. An advisory role that existed only on paper. After the meeting, I went to Daniel's office. "You're sidelining me." "I'm repositioning you." I designed every system in this company. Every production line runs on my architecture. Every major client we have came because of technology I built. That's exactly the problem, Rachel. The company is too dependent on one person. We need to institutionalize the knowledge, spread it across the organization. Institutionalize? You mean transfer my expertise to people who don't have the background to understand it, then eliminate my position entirely? You're not ready to lead. That's what he said, leaning back, smirking. You're a brilliant engineer, Rachel, but leadership requires a different skill set. Vision, strategic thinking, the ability to see beyond the technical details. I've grown this company from $47 million to $1.4 billion. Gerald grew this company. You supported the technical infrastructure. Something inside me went very quiet, very still, the way a machine goes quiet right before a catastrophic failure. Not broken, just recalibrating. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope I'd prepared that morning, the envelope I'd hoped I wouldn't need. I slid it across his desk. What's this? My resignation, effective in 2 weeks. The smirk wavered. If I'm not ready to lead, Daniel, then this company isn't ready to lose me. You think you're irreplaceable? Nobody's irreplaceable. I smiled. 2 weeks. That's all you have to prove that theory. My resignation sent shockwaves through the company. Not publicly. Daniel made sure of that. He accepted my resignation without announcement, told the board I'd left for personal reasons, spun the narrative to make it seem voluntary and inconsequential. But inside Meridian's engineering teams, panic was immediate. Rachel's leaving? One of my senior engineers messaged me. Who's going to manage the TIMS integration cycles? Nobody, I thought. That's the point. For 14 days, I did exactly what my resignation letter required. I showed up, I completed my transitional duties, I offered to brief Daniel's team on the critical systems. They declined. Every single briefing. Declined. We've got it handled, Daniel's new VP of Operations told me. How complicated can it be? I didn't argue, didn't warn them again. I'd been warning them for 11 months. They had 847 pages of documentation I'd created. They had the system manuals. They had everything they needed except the one thing that couldn't be documented: understanding. TIMS wasn't just software, it was an ecosystem. 2.3 million lines of code connected to 14,000 sensors across 4 manufacturing facilities. The system had interdependencies that I'd designed to be robust, but complex. Robust because the system could handle enormous stress without failing. Complex because managing that system required deep knowledge of how every component interacted. My last day was a Friday. I cleaned out my office, took my personal files, my notebooks, my father's old calibration tools that I'd kept on my desk for 14 years. One of my engineers, a woman named Priya Mehta who I'd mentored for 6 years, met me in the parking lot. Rachel, what's going to happen? I hugged her. Keep your documentation updated, trust your training, and keep your phone on. She looked at me with the expression of someone watching a load-bearing wall get removed from a building. I drove home, poured a glass of wine, waited. It took 8 days. Day 8 after my departure. 2:47 a.m. Production Line 7 at the Houston facility experienced a catastrophic servo failure. The TIMS system had been flagging degradation patterns for 3 weeks. The alerts required manual acknowledgement and intervention. Nobody on Daniel's reduced maintenance team knew how to interpret the alerts. They'd been ignoring them. Line 7 went down. $12 million in active production orders halted. Day 9. The servo failure on Line 7 created a cascade effect. The TIMS system automatically redistributed production loads to Lines 4, 8, and 12, but the redistribution protocols required parameter adjustments that Daniel's team didn't know how to make. Lines 4 and 12 were pushed beyond their calibrated operating limits. Line 4 failed at 6:15 p.m. a hydraulic press operating 23% above its rated pressure blew a seal. The resulting shutdown cascaded through 3 connected subsystems. Line 12 failed at 11:30 p.m. Thermal sensors detected overheating in the main drive assembly. The emergency shutdown protocol activated, but because the maintenance team had modified certain system settings trying to resolve the Line 7 issue, the shutdown sequence didn't execute cleanly. The line went down hard. Equipment damaged. 2 weeks minimum for repairs. Day 10. Daniel Hargrove called an emergency meeting. 4 production lines down. $340 million in active contracts at risk. Clients calling every hour demanding status updates. Daniel's team scrambled. They brought in external consultants, manufacturing experts from 3 different firms. Each one looked at the TIMS architecture and said the same thing. This system is proprietary, completely custom. We've never seen anything like it. We'd need months to understand it well enough to troubleshoot. Months. Daniel didn't have months. He had days. Day 11. The phone call. Northridge Defense Systems. $780 million contract. Meridian's largest client. Their procurement director called Daniel directly. Mr. Hargrove, we've been monitoring the situation at your Houston facility. Our contract requires 99.7% production reliability. You're currently at 34%. We're invoking our performance clause. Daniel tried to negotiate. The procurement director cut him off. We have one condition for maintaining this contract. We want Rachel Torres managing our production line, personally. If she's no longer with your company, get her back, or we're moving $780 million to your competitor by end of month. Daniel called me that evening. I let it ring 4 times. Rachel? Daniel? We need to talk. I'm listening. The silence on his end was thick with something I'd never heard from him before. Desperation. I need you to come back. I took a sip of wine. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm not sure I heard you correctly. I didn't rush back. I let Daniel stew for 48 hours, while lines continued failing and clients continued threatening. During those 48 hours, I had 3 meetings. First, with my attorney, Patricia Huang, who'd been reviewing my employment contracts and intellectual property documentation for months. Patricia, what's our position? Strong. Your original employment agreement with Gerald Pratt includes IP provisions that were never updated during the Vandermeer acquisition. The TIM system, all 2.3 million lines of core code, is classified as work product, but the foundational algorithms are based on your pre-existing patents you filed before joining Meridian. Meaning, Meridian has a license to use your patented technology, a license that's tied to your employment. When your employment ended, the license terms become negotiable. Second meeting, Priya Mehta, my former mentee. She brought 3 other senior engineers. All 4 had been documenting the failures, the ignored warnings, the systematic dismantling of safety protocols under Daniel's leadership. Rachel, it's worse than you think. He's been falsifying maintenance records to hit his cost targets. The board doesn't know. I looked at the documentation. Show me everything. Third meeting, a woman named Catherine Voss, CEO of Titan Industrial, Meridian's primary competitor. Catherine had been trying to recruit me for years. Rachel, if things don't work out with Meridian, I want you here. Chief Technology Officer, full authority over manufacturing systems, equity stake, name your terms. I appreciate that, Catherine. Give me 1 week. When I finally called Daniel back, I had everything I needed. We met at a neutral location, a conference room at my attorney's office. Daniel brought Meridian's general counsel. I brought Patricia. Daniel looked exhausted. 11 days of crisis had aged him visibly. "Rachel, we want you back." "I know. Here are my terms." I slid the folder across the table, watched his face change as he read. Page 1. Title: Chief Executive Officer. Effective immediately. Daniel Hargrove to transition to a non-operational board advisory role. Page 2. Compensation. Base salary of $2.4 million. Performance bonus structure tied to production metrics. Equity stake of 8.7%, vested over 3 years. Page 3. Operational authority. Full control over all manufacturing operations, engineering staffing, and technology investments. No override from private equity representatives without board supermajority. Page 4. Organizational restoration. Immediate reinstatement of the full predictive maintenance team, restoration of engineering R&D budget to pre-Hargrove levels, removal of all unqualified personnel appointed during Daniel's tenure, and replacement through merit-based hiring. Page 5. Board restructuring. 2 additional board seats allocated to technical leadership, ensuring engineering expertise is permanently represented in governance. Daniel's general counsel whispered in his ear. Daniel's face went red, then white. "This is... you want my job. I want the job Gerald Pratt promised me, the job I earned through 14 years of building the systems that make this company function, the job you took from me because you confused a spreadsheet with a factory. The board will never approve this. The board will approve whatever prevents a $780 million client from walking out the door, along with the 17 other clients whose contracts are now at risk. Patricia, what's the current exposure?" Patricia opened her folder. Total contract value at risk due to ongoing production failures, $1.2 billion. Potential liability for missed delivery deadlines, $340 million. Estimated cost to rebuild the TIM system without Rachel's involvement, $89 million over 24 months, assuming it's even possible without her patented foundational algorithms, which it isn't. Daniel stared at the numbers. "You have 48 hours, I said. After that, I accept Catherine Voss's offer at Titan Industrial, and I take my patents with me." The board approved my terms in 31 hours. Not unanimously. Vandermeer Capital's representatives fought it. They argued that no single employee should have this much leverage, that the company needed to reduce its dependency on any individual. The board chair, a woman named Margaret Sullivan, who'd served with Gerald Pratt for 20 years, shut them down with a single sentence. "You spent 11 months trying to prove Rachel Torres was replaceable. You failed, spectacularly. Accept the reality and let's move forward." The announcement went out on a Tuesday. Rachel Torres appointed Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Manufacturing. The press release included a quote from Northridge Defense Systems. "We've worked with Rachel Torres for 9 years. Her engineering excellence is the reason we chose Meridian. Her return to leadership ensures the continuation of a partnership built on technical integrity and trust." Stock price jumped 9% on announcement day. My first week as CEO, I didn't sit in the corner office. I went to the factory floor, stood in front of damaged production lines, rolled up my sleeves. I spent 72 hours personally directing the restoration, recalibrating the TIM system, retraining the maintenance team, repairing what 11 months of neglect had broken. Line 7 was back online in 4 days, Line 4 in 6. Line 12 took 11 days due to equipment damage, but by day 14, all production lines were operational, defect rates back to baseline, predictive maintenance fully restored. The Northridge contract was saved, along with every other client relationship Daniel had jeopardized. My first board meeting as CEO was brief. This company was built on engineering excellence. That is not a slogan. It is our operational reality. Every decision we make, from hiring to budgeting to client engagement, will be evaluated through one lens. Does it make our manufacturing systems better? I looked around the table. Some faces were supportive, some were resentful, all were listening. I don't care about quarterly earnings targets designed to impress private equity firms. I care about building systems that don't fail, because when our systems don't fail, the money follows. It always has, it always will. Any questions? Nobody spoke. Good. Let's rebuild. 2 years have passed since I became CEO of Meridian Manufacturing. The company has been transformed. Revenue has grown from $1.4 billion to $2.3 billion. We've expanded to 6 manufacturing facilities, filed 27 new patents, won 3 Department of Defense contracts that competitors didn't even bother bidding on because they knew they couldn't match our technology. The TIM system has been upgraded to version 4.0, fully autonomous predictive maintenance, AI-driven quality control, real-time production optimization that adapts to demand fluctuations within minutes. I promoted Priya Mehta to VP of Engineering. She's brilliant, fearless, reminds me of myself 15 years ago. She'll run this company someday, and unlike what happened to me, I'll make sure the path is clear for her. Daniel Hargrove left Meridian 3 months after my appointment, went back to private equity. I heard he's consulting now, advising manufacturing companies on operational efficiency. The irony writes itself. Vandermeer Capital sold their stake 8 months later, took their profits, and moved on. The new institutional investors understand something Vandermeer never did. Technical excellence isn't a cost to be cut. It's the foundation everything else stands on. Gerald Pratt called me the day my appointment was announced. He was 73, voice shaky but warm. "You did it, Rachel. I'm sorry it took so long." "It took exactly as long as it needed to, Gerald." He laughed. "Your father would be proud." My father passed away 6 years ago. He never saw me become CEO, but he saw me become an engineer, and I think that would have mattered more to him anyway. I keep his old calibration tools on my desk, right next to a framed printout, the production data from those 11 days of Cascade Failure. 4 lines down, $340 million at risk. A company brought to its knees because one man decided the person who built everything wasn't ready to lead. People ask me if I'm angry, at Daniel, at the board, at the 11 months of disrespect and dismantling. I'm not angry. Anger is wasteful. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. Daniel Hargrove was a problem. I solved him. People ask me what I'd tell other women in technical fields, women who've been passed over, talked down to, had their expertise questioned by people who couldn't do their jobs. I'd tell them what my father told me in his workshop 30 years ago. Machines don't lie. People lie. Machines tell you exactly what's wrong if you know how to listen. Learn to listen. Document everything. Build systems so good that your absence becomes undeniable proof of your value. And when someone smirks and tells you that you're not ready to lead, don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't list your accomplishments for people who've already decided not to hear them. Just smile, slide your resignation across the desk, and walk out. Then wait, because the machines will tell the truth. They always do. And when everything starts falling apart, when the production lines crash and the clients panic and the stock price drops and everyone is scrambling for answers, they won't be looking for the person who cut costs or optimized spreadsheets or restructured org charts. They'll be looking for the one who built it. They'll be looking for you. If this story hit home, if you've ever been told you weren't ready for something you'd already been doing, if someone took credit for your work, dismissed your expertise, or handed your role to someone who didn't earn it, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and smash that like button. We share stories like this every day. Engineers who proved their value, builders who refused to be erased, people who let their work speak when words weren't enough. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because somewhere, right now, another engineer is sitting in a meeting being told she's not ready, and she needs to know that the machines don't lie, the work doesn't lie, and the truth always comes out. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.